So again, welcome. Enjoy the food, the drink, the speeches, the breakouts, and most of all, the camaraderie of concerned and engaged folks who want to make this a better world for us all. Thanks, and have a great day. And now it's my pleasure to introduce a stalwart at Fighting Bob Fest every year, 2nd District Congresswoman Tammy Baldwin.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Ed, for bringing us together in this 9th year of Fighting Bob Fest. It is wonderful to get to join you.
Sorry, that was from Glenn Beck.
I think he's going to be making several appearances. But my friends, we gather here on a solemn date, a day of remembrance. 9 years ago this morning, we were shaken to the core by terrorist attacks on our country. As a nation, we mourned the lives lost, and in our shock and grief, we felt a spirit of kinship with our fellow Americans and the entire world community. And then we saw that solidarity and sense of purpose dissolve into the nightmare of the Bush-Cheney-Rumsfeld chapter of American history. I must note, sadly, that I will travel from here this morning to the funeral of 20-year-old Private Adam Novak of Sauk Prairie, who was killed in Afghanistan a couple of weeks ago. A son of Wisconsin, a brave young man, and a reminder to all of us of the horrible toll and human cost of war. As we gather today, this year, we find ourselves in rather a mess. 2 wars, high unemployment, and a deep, deep recession. But this is not a mess of progressive making or democratic making. This is not our mess. It is theirs. And we cannot let other people get away with rewriting history on that point. We cannot let Robert Murdoch or Glenn Beck, Sarah Palin, or Tea Partiers rewrite our past and define our future. We cannot let Citizens United destroy our democracy by allowing corporations to run our elections. Corporations are not people. People are people. And we cannot let bigotry, xenophobia, religious intolerance, and hate defile our nation and destroy the American dream. Now, more than ever, we need to channel the wiles and wisdom of Fighting Bob and Belle Case La Follette. And as he leaves Congress, we need to inherit the progressive mantle of Dave Obey, the champion of working men and women. Dave Obey, whom we will miss more than we can even say, and to whom we owe such a tremendous gratitude, a debt of gratitude for his decades of public service. You know, we need more Dave Obeys in Congress. And while I can never fill his shoes, I ask you for your support as I work to continue his legacy in pursuit of fairness, justice, and the common good that is the Wisconsin way. Now, we progressives have an uphill battle this fall, and we must not give in to cynicism. When we go to the polls, we must not let the fearmongers win the day, or we will have much more to fear than fear itself. We have some additional challenges in this midterm election, and one of them is the decline of journalism and how this affects the way citizens get information about elections, about policy, about government, about their democracy. And I want to explore that notion with you for a moment this morning. Democracy cannot function properly without a healthy media, without a healthy press. And local newsrooms and newspapers have suffered mightily in this recession, and its roots actually can be attributed to even earlier. Now, it's great to have a local paper sponsoring this organization that is run by a foundation. But we also know that that is not the business model of many others. And we've seen newsrooms decline to half their size, and it's only continuing. Coverage of government at all levels has suffered. There are now 30 states in our union that have no newspaper with a Washington, D.C. based reporter. Imagine that. How are we getting our information about government, about our democracy? Increasingly, of course, we see changes in the way people get their information. People have gravitated to the internet and cable news, if you can call it that. And I'm not sure today that you can. I think of the way the phones in our office light up after a particularly provocative report on Fox News. People calling with their Fox News talking points, oftentimes having no basis in truth at all. We have a very serious situation as we head into midterm elections with people having very few accurate ways of getting information about candidates. So that is a context in which our midterm elections are playing out. So what do we do as progressives? What do we do as people who take our citizenship in this democracy seriously? Well, first, we must become the truth tellers. We must be the ones to respond when we see or hear inaccurate information, when we see distortions and lies. I think back to last year's healthcare debate and the reports out of some talk radio and some talk television on death panels or government takeovers or socialism. I can tell you that just because you repeat it over and over and over again does not make it true. I particularly get amused when people talk about our healthcare reform system as being a government takeover of medicine, because I actually was for a government takeover of medicine. I was for a single-payer plan. And that isn't, as we know, what we ended up with. But I also think what we ended up with was incredible progress for the American people that will guarantee, when fully implemented, that 32 million people who today have no health insurance will have access to high quality and affordable insurance. Once and for all, we have made a long-term aspiration a soon-to-be reality that all Americans have health insurance. And I remember a particularly entertaining part of the healthcare debate, especially playing out on cable news networks and radio talk shows, where people were carrying around the extensive bill that we were working on, all 2,000 pages, and saying, "Have you read the bill? Have you read the bill?" Well, I challenged my colleagues to something a little bit different. Over the course of my tenure in Congress, I have received some 70,000 letters from people that I represent telling me their heartfelt personal stories with our healthcare system. Parents whose children have pre-existing medical conditions and cannot find any insurance for their children. People who have health insurance but maybe haven't read the fine print. I remember the fellow from Beloit, Wisconsin, whose family wrote in about his experience with cancer. Fully insured, he thought, had a $10,000 limit for chemotherapy. Well, that covered the first treatment. Second treatment went on the family credit cards. Third treatment was a second mortgage. Well, the family went bankrupt to take care of Dad. I could tell you story after story because each of those 70,000 letters were from people with real stories, families right here in our area. And finally, once and for all, we are going to put an end to the things that drove people to bankruptcy or the terror that parents experience when they can't cover their children. But I said back to my colleagues who flapped the bill around and said, have you read the bill, all 2,000 pages? I said, read your letters. Read these 70,000 letters and you will have no doubt what the right thing to do is with regard to health care reform. So back to the midterm elections and the context we find ourselves in, a difficult economy, and a time in which accurate information is hard to find. We must be the truth tellers. We must remind people who created this mess. We must ask our fellow citizens to participate. And as in all elections, we must remind people that every election presents a choice. Now, I think the other side, the non-progressives, would like folks to wander into the polling place thinking of it more as a referendum than a choice. But every election provides us with a choice. In this midterm, we have a choice to continue moving forward, to continue cleaning up the mess that we inherited, or we can give power back to those who would move us backwards. And I ask, do you want to continue to make progress, or do we want to give the keys back to the very folks who drove this economy into the ditch? We must work to ensure that the answer to that last question is a resounding no. No to Citizens United. No to the Tea Party. No to big oil, big pharma, and big bonuses on Wall Street. No to the Glenn Beck sympathizers. No to Sarah Palin and her Grizzlies. No to their lies and libelous claims. No to hate, and yes to healing. No to reactionaries, and yes to reformers. No to divisiveness, and yes to democracy, and yes to progressive values. Yes to remembering that Fighting Bob lives on in each of us, and our future is dependent on each of us. Yes to moving forward with courage and conviction as proud progressives and proud Americans. Thank you.